All right, we are live. Welcome to another session of Dance Tea. I have an amazing artist with me today. We have KAVITA Rao of Karmagraphy. She's not only an artistic director, but she's also choreographer, teacher, and so much more. So, welcome,
Hi.
KAVITA.
How are you, Shannon? Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining. I really, really appreciate it. I think you have so much to offer our community. So I want to thank you again for coming on here and being able to talk about your experiences.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, so I just want to get into it so I don't waste more of your time. But I do want to know. This is something that I always ask the people that I interview in the very beginning because I think it's the most interesting question. What got you into dance? What got you started into dance? And what made you continue doing it?
sure. Yeah, so I started probably like most dancers at age 3. My mom put me in ballet, but the interesting thing is my mother was at the time was a professional Indian classical dancer, Bharatanatyam dancer. So while I was training in like ballet, jazz, tap, all these Western styles, my mom was still performing, on TV shows and touring and things like that. So she would actually come into my studios and give master classes on, different Indian classical dance forms. So not that I necessarily did the legit training in Indian classical dance. It was just kind of being absorbed by my mom and her teaching me. But then I continued, and then we moved a lot as a kid. So I think that's one of the great things you learn by moving a lot is being to adapt quickly. So I lived in 4 or 5 different cities by the time I was in high school. And then I was really lucky. I was in Houston at the time, and I got to go to a high school that had an amazing dance performing arts program where right away as a freshman, you could submit to choreograph to be a part of bigger things, and made this beautiful setup. And we had teachers from like the Houston Ballet and very, I would say, like artsy teachers. So it was not quite the competition world, but it was really about like concert dance. And so I had these amazing 4 years of being a part of this company through high school. That's when I really was like, okay, choreography is where my strength is, not quite as a dancer. And I knew that very quickly. So I was lucky I was able to choreograph all 4 years when I was in high school. So I actually got to my piece my freshman year, got taken, and then throughout. And so I already kind of had that inkling. So I knew I wanted to dance after high school because it was such a huge part of my high school career. But being Indian, and this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
At that point, it was not really an option to go into
Right.
arts as an Indian American. So especially the high school I went to was super academic based. Everyone's going to like Harvard and Yale, and to pick a small liberal arts college, which I went to Chapman. No one from my high school had ever gone to Chapman before, so they were like, where are you going? What are you doing?"
Where is that?
Yeah, exactly. So it was one of those things that I was like, I know I wanted to figure out how to do dance, but I didn't think it would be something that I would be doing full time. So I ended up double majoring in public relations and dance, thinking that, dance will be a hobby, something that I just feel like I want to continue, but okay, I have to follow this career path and get into this lane. So post school, or while I was in school, I ended up graduating early, started working in the PR event industry, doing events, and then got into beauty PR, which brought me to LA right after college. So I had completely stopped dancing for a few years and was fully doing PR. And it seemed like a really glamorous life because it's like we're doing these Vanity Fair Oscar parties, and I'm getting free clothes and free massages, and like all these things seem really awesome. I absolutely hated it. I was like, it was like so soul sucking to me. And I was just really miserable. And that's when I just one day quit, worked every day, was working, I think on like Christmas Day or something like that. I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do because I had stopped dancing. But then I was like, you know what? I'm in LA. I'm just going to go audition for an agency.
Mm.
Whatever. I have friends, a lot of my friends from college were dancing, that were doing really well. And so I had a lot of friends. And at that point, I had event produced a few big dance industry events because I was like known as the PR girl back in the day in the dance industry. So my friend Gina Starbuck had started this this big charity called Art for Life. So I became her event producer. And so then I met all these choreographers that were amazing and doing all these things. And so I already started getting to know a lot of people in the dance industry.
Mm.
And I ended up doing Kevin Maher's charity event, then Ben Allen. So I just became like the person that was like event producing for all these choreographers. So I started just getting to know a lot of people. So I think that really helped. As we know, connections are everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so then I ended up auditioning for an agency. It happened to be one of the agents was someone that I went to school with as well. Ended up getting signed. And at that point, there's one other Indian person in the like entire industry. So
In Los Angeles or
in
just
Los
in the
Angeles,
US? Okay.
yeah, that I had seen, and then I met like maybe 2 or 3 others in those first 5 or 6 years that I was auditioning as a dancer. Most all the jobs I went for were like hip hop, jazz, very Western based stuff, Disney, touring with artists, etc. I knew my skill set was much more inclined to choreography, but I knew no
Mhm.
one would take me seriously if I didn't have credits as a dancer. So it's like that, as dancers or as artists, we have to know our strengths and be honest with what they are and our weaknesses. And so I was like, okay, how do I figure out how to get to what I know I'm good at? Because I know if I'm like auditioning next to 18-year-old dancers at this point, I'm already older. I'd stopped it.
Right.
My leg can touch my head, but it's gonna like take a lot of stretching before it's like not the same as when you're like straight out of college or you know performing all the time and then going back into it. But it was a really interesting time to be a dancer in LA. It was before social media, before YouTube, before anything. The community was really tight knit, and I just got really lucky to have a mentor, Andre Fuentes, who took me under his wing and just like built um, you know, just build a really strong group of friends that we just all supported each other in different you know, carnivals or, all the things that we do as dancers,
Right.
all the millions of free jobs you do.
And hours of rehearsals.
Yeah. And just like there's no cameras, no nothing. I mean, it's so sad because Andre like has
Yeah.
passed. I'm like, I have no footage from the years and hours that I was in his class or doing his pieces or anything like that. So that kind of part makes me sad. But then I look back and I'm like, I'm so glad that I had that experience as well. Now seeing younger dancers that are growing up in this like digital age of dance, which is a whole nother beast.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. I want to backtrack really quick. Um, you mentioned that you went to school. Well, you basically went to the performing arts high school, which that's amazing. And then you still continued on to college. What were some of the advantages that you felt you gained from going to school for dance? And would you recommend going to college for dance for younger dancers, or do you think that um, maybe a more suitable pathway would just be to go dance?
No, that's a fantastic question. I think there's two sides of the coin. One is like we said, connections are such a huge part of any artist career. And when you go to college for dance, I feel like this for my experience that you create lifelong connections with these people because you are doing the most as as well from being a dance major. Like you are in rehearsals all day, you're taking a million classes, you're stuck with the same group of people for 3 or 4 years. So you really build a great sense of community. And I think most of the time the people that do go to school for dance or for any art-based career end up pursuing it right in the future
Mm-hmm.
in some sense. So I think you the connections that you get from going to school for dance is super important, and you can gain so much for that. But that being said, you can also do that by moving to a city like New York or LA and being in class and making those own connections. But sometimes it really depends on where a dancer is in their kind of how strong and confident they are already in those skills of communication and interpersonal communication, and how do you create connections that are that feel real and authentic and not just social climbing, I guess is the word. And then I think the other part that I really enjoyed about going to school for dance is that because I was stronger in choreography, and that's really what I wanted to do, is all the history and the choreography classes. There's so much more to choreography than steps, and I think it is a full separate skill set than dance. And I think that was a really great place for me personally, I had some great teachers that were amazing choreographers that really helped you kind of figure out different tools and techniques to build on work and phrasing and stuff. As a choreographer, I think it's important to really know dance history and to know founders of certain genres and movements, so that we're not just copying and imitating, but we're being inspired and figuring out how to honor legacies while still finding our own path. So I think education is extremely important if choreography is a goal of a dancer, because you don't want to just become an imitator or a copier, or not come from a place of some deeper understanding of whatever the style it is that you're choreographing. So I think that to me was super important, but that does delay the process. You do spend 4 years in a school setting versus a lot of dancers that come straight into it. And then when you do go into it 4 years later, like, wow, how are these people already that are my age working and doing all these things? Well, they came straight there. So I think on a dancer's personal, they have to be honest with themselves and like, am I really ready just to dive in and figure out how to do this on my own? Or do I need these 4 years to really like hone in my artistry, figure out what my strengths and weaknesses are, create these connections, use all the tools and resources that a dance program has to offer, like building resumes, helping you learn how to create a reel, so that when you walk out, you already have some things under your belt that maybe a new dancer would not.
Right. And going off of that, did school prepare you for that, for the auditioning world? What were some things that you felt that maybe you were missing, and that maybe dancers could get some advice on how to prepare for auditioning if it's their first time?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think you're never really prepared for auditioning the first time. And even when you have done it a million times, you walk into that one audition that's like, I just want you to stand there. And you're like, but, there's always a ball where you're like, what am I doing right now? Or, just we've all had those crazy audition experiences where like, this is bizarre, but okay, we're going for it. So I think that part, but I think practice is really the only key. Like, you have to keep putting yourself out there, keep getting rejected, figuring out how to move past that. So I think what college does help is that you do have a little bit of that experience when you're auditioning for pieces that you're being cast in, or you're also working with teachers that hopefully are working in the industry. So then maybe that's helpful once you get into that room and it happens to be someone you're comfortable with because you took class from them in college, or maybe it's a dancer that you actually went to school with that's now on the other side of the table. So I think there are some advantages. I think nowadays schools are doing a better job of preparing. At least some universities, I think, are incorporating more of that real life process into it. I actually teach for a university now, and I know that so much of their curriculum is based in what does this dancer need when they step out of the door. So they bring agents in during their process. They help them build reels. They help them get footage. It's more of that real life experience. I don't know if that's with all universities, but I think more and more people are understanding we need to prepare our dancers for how do they support themselves? How do they still make money? How do they still, honor their craft while being asked to do jobs that they may not feel are quite right for them, or, is in their lane, or things that they just don't feel comfortable with. So like all of those conversations don't happen in school, that I think that need a place, because it is scary, and there are a lot of things that happen in the audition world or job world that you're not ready for.
Oh, absolutely not. And even if you think you're ready, you go to that one audition, just like what? Um, so for younger dancers, what would you say the top 3 to 5 things that they would need to walk into an audition with?
I think most importantly is your headshot and resume. Make sure it is done professionally, done correctly, like you know how to format it, you know where your height and where all the things that need to be on a resume go, because I think that's the first thing someone looks at if they're like, okay, this person doesn't even know how to format a real resume. Even if you only have 3 things on it, make sure those 3 things are done correctly. You credit the people that need to be credited in your resume. It looks legitimate. It's the same size as your headshot. I mean, now so much is digital, so I think that's a little
Right.
different. But when it is brought in or even emailed in or whatever the case is, and that your photo is a legitimate headshot, body shot photo, that you've taken the time to get that done and it looks like you. It's not, you have now pink hair and your photo is not, or whatever it is. Like your photo has to represent who you are when you walk in the room, because when they're going back and looking at it, if you don't look like your photo, they're not going to put 2 and 2 together. So
No.
first of all, your presentation on what the stuff you can do to prepare beforehand, super important. That you do your research before you walk into any audition room, that you know who you're auditioning for, what is their style. You can find anything on YouTube now, as far as like, if you know who the choreographer is, you know who the artist is, you know what the production is. Come dressed and looking like what you see from your research of the type of work that person does, or the details that they send you. If they say body conscious clothing, don't come in sweatpants,
Right.
So, or whatever the specifications is like, read your emails, read your casting breakdown, and try to be as true to it as possible. And then I would say the last thing is walk in with confidence. Like, even if it's your first audition, act like it's your 100th. Freestyle like you know what you're doing. Even if you don't have all the choreography down, perform like you have been doing this your entire life. Like, you have to believe in yourself more than they're going to believe in you, because if they see the slightest of doubt, how can they trust you on the job? So it's a fake it till you make it situation.
Fake it till you make it. And you mentioned that you ended up auditioning for an agency, and you ended up getting it through connection, which is was it mainly through connection, or was it a referral process, or?
I think it was a little bit of both. Like, I went to the live audition, so because the person I went to college with was only like an assistant, junior
Mhm.
assistant at that time, so she's not like she had much say, but she was at least able to point to them and say, "Watch her," So I also didn't look like anybody else in the room. Like I said, there were no, like, for the longest time when I was auditioning, they'd be like, "Okay, Black girls go here, Latina girls go here," and they would look at me and be like, "You pick," like there's not even a group, they're like blondes and this, and it's like, whoa. So, I think a little bit of to my advantage, it helps maybe in the audition process, because they were like, "Oh, we don't have anybody that looks like her." But then it was also difficult because there weren't really jobs for people that looked like me.
Right.
So it was a really, like I said, an interesting time that I'm really glad that a lot of Indian Americans or Indians don't have to go through that experience now, because there is such a huge influx in that side of the dance community.
Oh yeah, it's a huge difference now. For I know a lot of younger dancers, what holds them back sometimes is the idea that they feel they need to have an agent to start working. What do you think about that? Was that true for you, or is that true at all?
I think there's the it was slightly true for me. I think a lot of the jobs I got, most of the jobs I got were through connections and like free work, like whether it's carnivals or submission videos that I'd done with my friends. So it was just constantly putting myself out there as a dancer, like literally doing everything possible. From, you know, being in class at 10 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. and then going to rehearsal every day. I was at the edge 24/7. So I think part of it is the agency, you get some of the opportunities you wouldn't, but then the other side of it is if you're not putting yourself out there all the time as being in class or doing jobs, like whatever the rando jobs are, nobody's going to really see you on that other side of the table. So you have
Mhm.
to do both. And I think nowadays it's different with social media and Instagram. There's so many people that book. I know I've booked dancers just off of somebody sending me their Instagram account and being like, hey, this person would be good for this job, or me being like, oh, I need to cast kids, and I would have to go through tons of things and find people that fit the look and the type of style. So just kind of literally doing my own research on social media and finding people. So I think now it's there's such a huge range of way for people to get jobs. It's not so specific. And you can always have friends that have, you know, agents, and them be like, hey, if you get a notice, can you tell me about it? If it's not something that's super specific where you'll get in trouble for. So there's always ways around it.
Oh yeah. Um, so you have been training in Western styles. What made you, or were you also training in any Indian styles at the same time, or what kind of made you decide to shift focus solely on Bollywood, which is kind of primarily what you do now?
Yeah. So like I said, my mom was an Indian classical dancer, so she would, like, for my solos and things like that, she would choreograph Bharatanatyam solos on me for like competition at Tremaine, which at that point they don't look at me like, you're crazy, what's happening? Or she would come give master classes at my studios. And then being Indian growing up, we're doing Bollywood all day, all the time, because it's like there's somebody's wedding, there's the volley. So we're always, as kids, learning dances from aunties or whoever, because it's somebody's wedding or it's at the volley function or some sort of festival. So growing up, you're kind of put in that world. But really what happened is, so I had met while we were auditioning another Indian dancer, Sapna, at the time. And again, it was that point, like I said, there was very, very few of us. Remember, like, literally going to an audition where they were looking for Indian dancers and 5 people showed up.
Wow.
That was it.
And only one was actually Indian.
Yeah. And it was actually the time of around Slumdog Millionaire came out, and all of a sudden the auditions, people started knowing what Bollywood was, and the auditions started coming for that. And I remember attending a few auditions and being so distraught by what I was having to do and how inauthentic it was and how far off the mark it was. I was like, why is our culture being represented like this? I mean, it was usually someone that maybe had watched 2 Bollywood like clips and said, oh, I got it. I know what I'm doing. And I was just I remember being like, what? There's all these amazing dancers and this talent, and all my friends are like capable of doing so much more than like twist the light bulb. Like, why is it being dumbed down? This is not how we should be represented, when you have these amazing dancers that can learn and do so much more. Like, as professional dancers, we're always adapting to different styles. Okay, like we have to go to Latin ballroom audition. Yeah, put on our shoes. Well, we're
Make it work.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, why for this does it have to be so simplified and dumbed down and feel so far off of what I felt was true to my experience? So I remember something and I like meeting after an audition for coffee. We weren't really that friends. I was like, hey, should we just start like choreographing stuff together and just putting it out there? Because we both were trained in both styles. We both she was more hip hop. I was like more contemporary. But we both had training in both styles, and she was like on her Garba Ross team in college and things like that. So we just started choreographing together as a way for us to be like, okay, we want to do other things that are representative of our style, because we just met through an audition where we both walked out and we're like, what was that? And so then we ended up just like choreographing for a show with a bunch of our dancers. And then we got people being like, and we just called our like joint duo name Karmagraphy. It wasn't a company. We were not trying to start a company, because both her and I danced for other Bollywood companies. And so we were just like, this is just our duo name to choreograph together, because we really wanted to like fuse both of our traditions together and like figure out a blend that we just felt wasn't around at that time. This was like a long time ago. And people just started being like, hey, can we join your company? And we're like, what company? There's no company. And so we just really started getting jobs because we fell into this little niche of something that wasn't happening. And we kept, we started out with one gig, and then that gig led to other gigs. And I mean, it really was so small in the beginning, but it was just my entire business has grown through word of mouth. We've never like really advertised or anything like that. And it was just, I think, a testament to the people felt like we were doing something that was hopefully authentic and different at the time. And yeah, from there now, 12 years later, yes, we still do Bollywood, but I think what makes me so happy is that my company can do everything, because I do have the ability, because of my training. I don't feel like my true choreography side comes from all these Western, modern, contemporary jazz as well. So if a client says like, hey, I want a showgirl piece, I don't feel inauthentic by choreographing it. I actually was in a full French Moulin Rouge style, tour. And I was a showgirl on tour for a long time. So like, I do have that experience. And I think what happens is you get put in a box. And sometimes I feel like that's what happens. And I keep having to be like, no, this is true to what I did in my career as a dancer. This is true to like how I feel. And that's why I keep feeling choreography is such a separate skill set than dance. I wouldn't say that necessarily I would go perform all the styles I choreograph, but I have the tools in my toolbox to understand how to present something depending on what the venue is, what the style is, what the situation is. And if I don't, I will bring in somebody that does have that specialty, because I'm not trying to do everything either, Right. But I do I am known for Bollywood because I have been teaching it for a very long time, because I'm able to speak to Western dancers in their language. I think it's been very successful in terms of with me and children is really what I love to do. I've been teaching kids now for 15 years and on the convention circuit for 10 years. And it's because I understand their training and I understand where they're coming from, that I can say, hey, this move feels like this that you do in ballet, or this feels like this that you do in jazz, but these are the tweaks and the changes you need to make in your body to make it this style.
Wow.
So that's why it's done really well on convention. And the way that I teach it, I always start with history first, because I think that's so much a part of my job as an educator. I'm not just there to give them steps. Especially for all these kids that, when I'm in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the US, like they've never done this style. It's like, I don't want them to walk out of this class with just a combo. Like they need to even understand what the word Bollywood means. And that's not just a dance style, right? So it's like, I have to give as much as I can in this hour to them, as far as that, like, here are some basic little bits of understanding so that they can start their journey on understanding how to approach a cultural style. Because I know you do so many, like you do so well, you do so many cultural styles that and you do them authentically, and that takes more than just imitating, right? Like you have to understand the culture. So I know
Absolutely. Oh, Yes, no, absolutely. And I think it's really important that you're able to communicate to your students from their language and then hone and bring that in to try and introduce a new style for them. That's really great that you do that. How did you get started in teaching conventions?
So I was brought on as a like specialty guest instructor for like a nationals, and the kids loved it so much. She brought me again the next year, and then she was like, this is something that they really love. And she was like, you teach other styles too, right? I was like, yeah. So then the fact that I was also able to teach musical theater and jazz funk and all these styles made it so that she felt comfortable being like, okay, you can teach a few Bollywood classes throughout the weekend, but I also need you to teach musical theater or jazz or whatever it is. So that's kind of how I really got my foot in the door. And this is before anybody did Bollywood on convention ever. So it
Right.
was kind of like she was the first to really take that leap of faith because she saw the response she got. Like she would have kids come up to her and be like, "Oh my God, Bollywood was my favorite style," and it was like the first time they did it. So and so she just kept getting these really, really great responses because it really is gelled so well with kids because it's about joy and, finding like the heart of performing. And it's something that like children can really attach themselves to, especially after they're like in these like sad, somber contemporary classes sometimes over and over. It's like they just want to be kids sometimes. And as in Bollywood, you get to be a kid. You get to jump. You get to laugh, you get to have joy, you get to experience emotions while you perform in like a happy, joyous way. So I think that's why children are really drawn to it.
Right. Yeah, very high energy. And yeah, I was gonna say, I think it was a really good opposite from
Love too, there's a place.
Yes, of course.
Kids also need to feel like kids. So
Yeah, it's always good to go on to experience both ends of the spectrum, of course. What are some of the differences, as a teacher that you've learned teaching in bigger settings like that for kids?
yeah, so I still teach at the studio level too because I love seeing like a continual growth of kids, which is a very different experience because you know all your kids so well, right?
Mm,
Some kids I've had for 10 years now, and just really know who they are, what their strengths and weaknesses are. But I think in a large setting, what the most you can give is something more, like I said, more than just a step. Leave them with something that they can apply in their dance journey. So for me, what I talk a lot about in my Bollywood class is the performance level because Bollywood is so performative and so much about character building. That's stuff that any studio owner would be so happy if that child came back and like was a little bit more into performance, because they can use that for their competitions and their classes and whatever it is they're doing. So I always try to kind of give them something that's beyond just a combo because a combo is whatever, right? It's great, it's fun, yes, yay, but it's about what are these children gonna be left with that they can use in their dance journey or that they can use in their experience after that. It has to be more than just a step.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm so grateful for this conversation. This has been great. It's been really nice to have a conversation with you. I always see you in
I feel like
passing,
our
so
paths have crossed so many times, but like we've never, I mean, we need to like, once this is all over, actually go out and have tea because,
I would love to.
and I know so many of
Absolutely.
our worlds are intertwined, which is so important that we keep our community, intertwined.
Yeah, no, 100%. I want to go back to you as an artistic director for Karmagraphy. You said that you were part of different companies before, you formed Karmagraphy or, accidentally started your own company. Um, were you part of other Bollywood companies at the time, or were they just, contemporary hip hop or other?
So both. I was in a few, like I actually had my own company before Karmagraphy, called Flirt, which was a all girl burlesque, jazz, hip hop. We did like a lot of music videos, a lot of like nightclub shows. So I already had experience building my own company, because what happened is when I started dancing again, I was older and I was like, I do not want to wait for people to give me jobs. I'm going to create my own. I already have a very strong business sense because I went to school for it. My dad's an entrepreneur. I've always been obsessed with building company businesses, whatever it is. Like I feel like I'm just continually going to be building things and leaving them. So I already had a company before Karmagraphy, which I learned a lot. I feel like one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give is like fail when you can, when you're young, when the stakes aren't super high, because you learn so much from failure. And I feel like if I hadn't had that first dance company, which, you know, in some sense was a failure because, you know, I had a partnership fallout with the girl I started it with. And I learned so much about when I started a new partnership, how I wanted to handle it and how I felt like we could go about things better. And same thing with being a part of all these different dance companies. I was a part of 2 Bollywood dance companies at the time. And I had my own other company. And then I also danced for a few kind of like contemporary like choreographers that were kind of companies. So LA is like a weird company world. It's like, it's not like the way New York is, I think, with companies. So I think I learned a lot from those companies about when Karmagraphy did become a company, of how I wanted to do things, whether it was differently or things that I appreciated from other company directors. I think the most important thing you can learn is what not to do sometimes, and just being observant and soaking that in. And I just remember having one company director that was just horrible to dancers and just yelled, and just seeing my friends like walk out of rehearsal crying. And I don't think any of my dancers could say I've ever yelled in my entire life as an artistic director, because I was so traumatized by that experience and seeing how my friends felt, that I was like, okay, if I'm ever on the other side of the table, it is to approach my dancers with kindness and respect, and be treated the way I want to be treated, and never forget where I came from, that I was a dancer, that I did go through that experience. I know how hard it is. So I think it's all those experiences of being in companies and really understanding, okay, like what worked and what didn't work for them, and how can I apply that, and also where did I fail, and always being conscious of taking that into account and not being fearful of that failure, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow, I agree. What were some of the other things that you learned of not to do?
I mean, I think first off, I learned a lot about how to run an audition. I hope that, you know, people that attend my auditions feel their time is respected and that they're being treated nice. I mean, I think my last audition, I got a ton of like email response being like, oh my God, even though I didn't make it, that was one of the most fun times I've had in an audition. And that's what I feel like I want to be about, because obviously not all 100, 200 people are going to get the job, but can this experience still be something that these dancers can benefit from if they're giving me this time of, you know, 4 hours, actually 8 hours of their day probably, between hair and makeup and driving and all the other stuff that goes into an audition. So, you know, I think going to so many auditions where you're treated just like you don't matter,
Mm-hmm.
thing that I always try to keep in mind. Trying to be super organized on my end, because it's so frustrating when you get to an audition and it's not organized, or whether it's a rehearsal even. So trying to really like take into account what is my job and how can I do as much work as possible on my end before stepping into a rehearsal room, an audition room, a job room, whatever it is, because I know how hard it is to do the actual job as a dancer. So my job is to make all of the other stuff easy and seamless. And, you know, I'm sure there are crazy jobs that my dancers have gone through in my company, I'm not gonna lie, like clients that have been out of control or situations that we can't control. But, you know, hopefully I'm able to still like be calm and present in the moment to address those things. So yeah, most dancers are like, if they ever see me like get mad, they're all like, because it just, I try to really, really keep all my like emotions outside of the door. Because when you're at the top, eventually everything lands on you, the good, the bad, all of it. We have to take responsibility, whether it's our fault or not, right? So whether it's something I did or didn't do, it's my company. I will be responsible. So how can I handle that with the most grace and stay calm in times of disaster, which
Chaos.
it happens. It's we're in the entertainment industry. It's going to happen, you know. And I know, you know, from doing so many gigs, it's like it can seem like the easiest job, and then you get there and it's just like glass on the floor and this and that, and you just, you know, it's a constant learning process.
Never ending.
Never ending.
Never ending. What were some of the things that you took with you from your last company onto your next one, because it became a partnership with Sapna, right?
Yes. So I first and foremost just being like really honest and open about all the business stuff and creating an LLC right away and getting like our legal ducks in an order, because I had to leave the other company without anything because I didn't think that I like just had full trust, right? Which is good to have full trust in your partner, but if things go south and you don't, and then I found out she had an LLC created a year earlier in her name without telling me, you know, like just crazy stuff. And I was just like, oh, wow, I really need to, yes, this is like art and fun and we're dancing and we're creating, but like the business stuff has to come first. Like, and not even just between ourselves, but also like, we need to make sure we have this stuff in an order for our clients when we're sending contracts and we're doing things that we need to have all of that taken care of. So not only are we protected, our dancers are protected. Yeah, the business side has to be taken care of first before you can get to the fun stuff. And I think just because I tended to just be like in my first partnership, like agree to everything because I didn't want to cause, you know, I don't like conflict.
Tension, right?
Yeah, and I just think, okay, it's cool. Yeah, let's just do it. And I realized, okay, I need to speak up for certain things that I do feel strongly about because then the resentment's going to build. And also, if I do have an expertise in a certain area, I shouldn't shy away from that because as partners, two people have different strengths and weaknesses, and you have to be honest about what those things are instead of just pretending like one person can do everything, right? You have to be able to like be like, okay, she was really good at accounting and like, you know, all the math stuff, and I was like the super artsy one. And so we had to learn how to like share, you know, and I was really good at managing dancers. And so it was like we learned what our strengths were. And then obviously when she left, you know, and not for bad reasons, but like she got married and, you know, wanted some normalcy to her life because this is not a normal life. She, you know, I found somebody to replace the skill sets that I knew I was not strong at. I'm not good at accounting. Do not give me a bunch of numbers and expect it to add up correctly. Like, so I hired an account, you know, I just extended, we hadn't counted, but I extended her responsibilities because I knew those were things that I didn't want to sit and write checks and figure out all of that. That was just not in my purview of things that I really cared about.
Right.
So I think you just have to be like, you know, even now looking back, my company is so different and I've reinvented it so many times because I really had to be honest of like, what is the situation and what are the strengths and how can I still be a good leader by also being true to like the things that I need to do in my career. And, you know, because my company for a while used to be such a tight knit group and we did company rehearsals every week and I trained people and it became like everybody was so close. And I mean, people were getting so good so fast because they were working with each other all the time. But I was like, I have no time to do anything else because I'm dedicating 4 or 5 hours just to training all these dancers. But then it's the nature of LA. They're going to pick up and leave on a cruise or they're going to do this or that. And it's like, okay, so then I reinvented the wheel again in my company. I'm like, okay, we're just going to go into like gig work because that is the nature of the way LA is not a company driven city. So I had to be honest with the fact that like here I feel like I'm getting my heart broken every time a dancer leaves because I care about them so much and I felt so attached to them. But I'm like, this is the honest nature of the business here. I have to be true to how it's going to work, and also what is going to be like economically feasible for us to continue as a company. I can't keep doing these days on end of rehearsals and then not, you know, I need to be like just booking the people that are right for the certain jobs, regardless if I, love this person so much and they've been working so hard and I want to give them the job, but then that's not going to benefit us in the long run if we're not going to get booked again because I'm just giving work to people that I love, which I try to still, but like I also have to be a director and make those choices and be honest about like, okay, this is what the client's asking for. I need to provide them with what they're asking for, and not just you can't do that in a true like New York style company setting.
Right. So so now you would say you're more of like an entertainment agency type where you have a roster of artists that you pull in for events.
Exactly. And I think it just frees up so much for my dancers, so much for myself. There's no kind of like everyone can go do what they need to do, because people used to be like, oh, it was with other Bollywood companies, people didn't know how to handle that. And I was like, I don't really care, but like I also don't want to like step on other people's toes because I know other people care.
Right.
So it was just like a weird way of like, we're not truly just a Bollywood company either. So I didn't want to feel limited by putting that cap on it anymore. So I think now it's like, we're actually doing a shoot on Monday and it's ballerinas and, like tap dance. It's nothing of what our box used to be. And I think I just had to let go of the box and be like, okay, who is right for the job, who's available. Let's just book it, do that job, move on to the next. So
That's for me, that's just the nature of LA, and I think that's a really great route to take for sure. And with that comes less heartache.
for sure.
I mean, maybe you may not have as strong of a community because you're not meeting on a consistent basis, but the community is still there for sure.
Totally.
I was interviewing Rohit last week, and we were talking about the idea of exclusivity between companies and what are there advantages to keeping us dancers only in one company exclusively, and obviously there's a conflict of interest when it comes to certain things, but what's your take on that?
I think there's pros and cons to both. I'm personally at a point where I don't believe in exclusivity, because I think a dancer can grow a lot from other experiences. Like I was lucky I was in 2 Bollywood companies at the same time. And I learned so much from both. And so I'm glad I had that experience. But not to say that one was not okay with me being in another one, and one was not okay with me starting my own. And so that's where I had to make, that's where the idea came into my head of like, oh my God, everybody's like mad at me. Everyone's mad that like this. And so it became one of those things, or if I used a dancer from another company, I would get the brunt of that. So that's when I felt like in my company, I had to start being like, okay, I'm getting in trouble. I guess this is like the way it is in this Bollywood circuit,
Yeah.
I didn't really know. I think I was too naive at the time. And like for a while, that's how our company operated. But now I'm just like, it's there. I've always believed this. There's enough room for everybody. There's enough work for everybody. We all have our different strengths, and like you're not going to find me making YouTube videos. That's not my strength. I'm not trying to dive into that world. I know where my strengths lie, like technology. I'm like shocked this is going so well, Shannon. I feel like me and technology is just like I feel like such an old woman sometimes. But it's one of those things that you gotta let dancers grow, and they also have to take the journey of figuring out what works for them, figuring out how they want to proceed in their career. I think the parts where it does get tricky is when it's multiple entertainment companies that are vying for the same job, and then clients getting confused of like, wait, is this the same person? Is this the same thing? Is this the same? That's the only time where it gets tricky. But I think in general, as far as like doing shows and learning choreography and training, it's so important that as dancers, train with as many people as you can, take as much class as you can. Nobody has ownership to any of this. We're all in the same space. Like, it's so funny you're talking about Rohit, because I was actually supposed to have dancers do a job in New York, and because of whatever situation, they couldn't. And he was referred to me by two really good friends of mine that had worked with him in the past. And so he and I have actually never met, but I just reached out to him on Instagram and I was like, hey, are you available for this job? And it worked out, and he was able to do the job, him and his wife. And I was like, this is
Awesome.
able to we should be able to share and trade jobs when things are either not working for us or not right for us, because it's karma. Everything is like full circle. If we treat people the way we want to be treated, it'll come around.
I totally agree, and that's part of the reason why this is part of the reason why I like to do all of these interviews, because it's kind of my way of being the bridge, hopefully, between people.
No.
Um, I want to go into you as a choreographer because you are mainly that, and that was part of the reason why you. I'm guessing that's part of the reason why you shifted your company so that you could pursue more opportunities as a choreographer. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. As a choreographer, not even just as a choreographer, dancer, director, you're constantly battling. And I don't know if this is the same for you, but I'm sure you'll have moments where you're battling feelings of being not enough, or just having internal fears, whatever those may be. What have been some of those internal fears, and how do you work through them in those times?
No, that's a great question. I think in the beginning, I had a lot of it when I was like stepping out of what I thought my box had to be. Um, I think having dancers that really trusted me was so important. So I think it was really imperative that I did have that tight knit company for a while, because I was able to experiment so much, because I had dancers that knew me so well, understood like my language so well, and it was such a safe place. Um, so that when it was time to do jobs where I was like nervous to do, I was like, oh, I have the backing, because then I was usually able to hire some of my dancers in general for most of my jobs, that I felt that safety net. But I think what was one of the hardest transitions for me is when I started working more in like film and television. I had done stuff as a dancer, but the choreography side is so different in that realm, because we truly are the last people on the totem pole, like when it's scripted or something, that are factored into any of it. And then you'll get the actor like 5 minutes before the scene, and you have all this choreography planned, but like how much can they learn in those 5 minutes between takes or whatever it is? But I think having mentors is super important. I was really lucky that, I mean, I still do, like the person that kind of brought me into film and television work has like really guided me and brought me in on so many jobs and she's been doing this, for 20 years. She was one of the first film and television choreographers. So she is like,
Who's your mentor?
Marianne Kellogg. So she's like very low key under the radar. She was one of Twyla Tharp's original dancers, like Singing in the Rain original cast, but like literally choreographed Clueless, Mad Men, The Office. Like the list is insane. Night at the Roxbury, like John Travolta, Look Who's Talking. Like she has literally done every possible film and television job. So we met doing a job where I was brought in just for like Bollywood, and we just clicked, and it became one of those things that she started being like, oh, you do other things. And so she just started using me as her assistant. And I think she really helped make me feel not safe, because she pushed me to, like, I can't sing to save my life. Like if I had to save someone's life based on singing, they would not survive. But I had to do a job where I didn't realize this, but I was playing Kristen Bell in a scene, and my partner was playing Brendan Fraser for a scene where they do like this karaoke thing together. And so here we are in the rehearsal room. It's just me and the guy and Marianne, and we're setting the choreography, and I'm lip syncing the whole time because there's a track. Kristen walks in, Brendan Fraser walks in, and is it Brendan Fraser? That's not the right. Kelsey Grammer, sorry. Yeah, got confused. He played Fraser. Okay. And then a pianist walks in, and it's like, what the fuck? And they're like, okay, will you show us what you did? They don't push the track with the lyrics. The pianist starts playing live. Let me tell you, I have never in my mind had, like, I thought I was literally going to die. There's Kristen Bell 5 feet in front of me who can sing. I mean, like, you know, she's and here I am, tone deaf, cannot even sing happy birthday, okay? And I'm looking at my partner, and he's like, you got this. And I was like, and I just had to sing. And Marianne was like, yeah, you had to perform for her, to do the part, because I was playing her. And I was just like, well, here goes. Like, so sorry. And it was the scariest, worst thing. But like, they didn't care about that. Like, she just wanted to see what it was going to look like, learn the movement. But like, our internal fears of like, oh my God, why did she bring me to do this? Like, this guy can sing, I can't sing. I'm not right for this. But then you just have to suck it up, because they're right in front of you, and you don't have a chance to second guess yourself, because, you know, I think for most choreography jobs, actually time is such a key element. So you don't have time to second guess yourself, because the jobs are fast, they're quick, you have to get it done. You're not given the leeway that I feel like a writer is, or other people in the process of a lot of these jobs. They expect you to come in already having it all done, being given the music right then. You know, it's, as choreographers, you're expected a lot very quickly. And I think it's just practice of over time. You know, I've been doing this for, 16, 17 years now, where it's just a muscle like everything else that you just build, and you have to just keep using that muscle. Otherwise it also goes away, or you have to keep pushing yourself and not getting comfortable. And which is why I like to be being forced to do different styles all the time, because then I don't get too comfortable and like, oh, this feels good all the time,
Right. Yeah. Get complacent.
Yeah.
This actually is a question from Instagram. I'm just gonna jump ahead.
Yeah.
They want to know, since you work a lot with VideoVox, they would like to know how that relationship came about.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I'm very lucky with most of the artists I've worked with. I end up becoming very good friends with and creating a long-term relationship with. But with her in particular, I was brought in to do a music video where I had never met her. I actually didn't know who she was at the time. It was somebody from India that was doing a collaborative music video with her, but she needed to learn the choreography in LA and shoot it. So it was supposed to be like a very quick thing, one rehearsal. And I used my dancers, cast it and everything. And what ended up happening is on that shoot, it became very clear that I was the only person that knew what I was doing in terms of behind the scenes. That the production team, and I ended up kind of taking over on a lot of things. Or just even not even taking over, but she kind of started trusting me immediately. And then she asked me to do her next music video. And so there was a trust that built as far as like our relationship of our working relationship. And then through that, we've now become best friends. Like, she's my sister, and it's crazy. We just did a job yesterday together, and it's insane because she's like my quarantine buddy. So I see her every day, but I was able, the instant we walked on set, to be the job that I needed to be for her, everything from like hanging banners to helping her get ready to blocking the dancers. And I think, I can never, you always have to remember what is your job in that moment and show up and be the best person you can be, which is why I think now, I've done 3 of her tours, her full tours, and it's that trust that we've built. And I feel very lucky that most of my artists feel this way, because I think you have to make every artist feel like that job you do for them is the most important job, and how they feel in every step of the process is most imperative, that they're comfortable, that they feel confident, that as a choreographer for an artist, you always have to make sure that they are your number one priority at all times, and making them feel really safe and secure, because most artists aren't dancers, right? Or they can dance, but that's not their main thing. So as a choreographer, our full job on set, whether it's even just teaching them how to sit, is to make sure that we have their back, that on camera or on stage, we are watching to make them feel that they are doing the best that they can possibly do at the level they are at that time, right? We don't expect them to drop into a split right then if they don't have flexibility, but like, where are they at, and really understanding. So I think that's actually one of my favorite jobs, is working with artists, because I tend to build these really strong relationships where I get into their heads, because I was like, want to know what they were thinking when they wrote the song, what's the inspiration, like really getting into it, so that I'm at the level that they are with their song, so that we can have that conversation about what works and doesn't work.
Nice. That's awesome. That's amazing. Have you worked with artists that were difficult and you just didn't jive with? And how do you deal with difficult artists or just clients in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think with I do a ton of first dance lessons and work with like clients all the time as well.
Oh, first dance lessons.
Just did a very interesting one the other day. It's so interesting. You learn so much about people in a dance rehearsal. Like, all the things come out. But I definitely have artists that are difficult because they want to do more than they're capable of in the time that's given. And as choreographers, we know what is possible, right? We can see, what they're able to do, but they expect a miracle. They expect that you're going to come in and you're going to throw potion on them and they're just going to do it. And you're like, yeah, no, it takes work. It takes time. You have to like train and build up to something that you want. And sometimes they don't understand that process. Or I think the hardest thing for me is that they don't respect the craft of a dancer, as far as like wanting to underpay or not pay, or like the value and the time that it takes for like either choreography or dancers. Like that's our job, that's our living. It's not like we are here just because we have nothing else to do. So I think so much of our value is undercut by there are so many people that are willing to give it away for free. But when it's what we do and we do it well and we know what we're doing, we have to stick up for that. And we have to stick up for our dancers that also know what they're doing. And obviously there are times where I'll be like, hey, do you guys want to do this promo thing? Because maybe they want the footage, but it's never something that I want a dancer to ever feel like that's something that they have to do to get the next job, right? And it's always something that I have to keep reminding and teaching an artist, or mostly clients too, like, this is why something costs this much. There's rehearsal, there's travel, there's this, there's that. Like, they just don't come knowing all this stuff. Like there's more work that goes into the process than just what the end result is. So much of what we do, I think, as choreographers, or I think me as like the owner of my company and the face to the client or the artist, is education. Educating the clients and the artists or whoever is hiring us that all of this takes time and it takes resources, and it is a value that is worth paying for, because at the end of the day, like, I am the gateway between what the dancers are getting, right? What their pay is. So I have to fight as hard as I can to make sure that people keep understanding and being educated on why. I mean, there's so many clients I've had to reject because they just don't get it.
Right.
And in the beginning of our company, yeah, we took everything, but now I'm like, you don't got the budget. These are dancers that do this professionally for a living full time. I'm so sorry. I can't help you. It's like not going to work.
I know how that goes.
Yeah.
Well, we are totally past, but if it's okay with you, I just have some quick fire
Yeah.
questions.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. We call these 5, 6, 7, 8 questions, so we can just bang them out. Do you have an embarrassing dance moment?
Ooh, yeah, I have definitely fallen off stage. I mean, I guess there's not one moment. I've fallen off stage. I've worn a shirt backwards. Definitely the singing in front of Kristen Bell, probably in the top,
Yeah,
top. But yeah, millions. I don't even.
millions.
Yes.
What habits have you implemented in the last year that's really made a positive shift for you in your career?
I think carving out space for myself and realizing that I also need time and space to work on things that are important to me, because I think so much of the past 10 years has just been focused on my company and my dancers, and forgetting that I also have a career that I need to give time to.
Mhm. Um, what did you wish you knew as a younger dancer?
Ooh, that it is okay not to follow the same path that people around you are following or fall into the same category. I think that's something, like I said, that we talked about earlier, that I struggled with a lot, of not seeing anyone that looked like me, or not also coming into dance later with a different skill set and figuring out how can I still have a career in this even though I don't see it. So you don't have to see it in somebody else, or to like realize that you can go after what you want.
Oh, that's beautiful. What's the best piece of advice you've gotten?
Ooh, that's a good one. I mean, I think the same piece of advice that I try to pass on is that it's okay to fail.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really important. Um, and what's the worst advice you've gotten?
Oh, I think just like try to do try to fit in. Like, this is what everyone's doing. You should do this too. I think for me, especially, that happened a lot with like social media stuff, because people are like, "Oh, you do that. You've been doing this forever. This should be your lane." And I'm like, it's not my medium. It's not what I trained in. It's not how I feel comfortable communicating with my art all the time. Sometimes, yes, but like, I don't want to be. I think I just have to stay honest to like my artistry and what I feel like where I can make an impact. Like, I feel right now I want to use that tool for like social activism, because I'm very like drawn to feeling like art has to say something right now. Uh,
Mhm.
so I think that's, social media is really the only way to get out any like social activism work. But as far as like my artistry as a choreographer, I do better with live and stage and like film and television and scripted stuff.
Oh, must have been tough during quarantine. Whew,
Yeah. It's like, oh, all the things I love.
gone. Yeah. We're all still struggling, but luckily I'm seeing that things are starting to pick up again, so that's great. Lastly, where can people find you if they want to get a hold of you?
So Instagram, KAVITA Dance, or Karmagraphy, and then Facebook. I don't really check it all that much. And then, yeah, I usually always try to get back to anyone that messages me, because when I teach, I always say that if you're ever a student of mine, my door is always open, whether it's tomorrow or 10 years down the line. Um, it's my job as an educator, and being on this side is, I'm no better than who I am able to help. So in any way that I can.
Yes. Kavita, you've been amazing. I can't believe I haven't asked you for a coffee date. in the past 10 years that I've
I
known of you.
before this time, I don't think I've ever stopped, like to take time for real people things. And so like that's been the one positive thing of like connecting with, friends or people, and that stuff about not about work, because I am so work focused all the time, that I think it's been really refreshing to kind of be like, oh, there's like my plant and needs taking or like I'm finally learning how to I make pancakes every day. That's like my one quarantine thing that I do like religiously every day.
You and me both.
Oh my God, are you into banana
Yeah.
pancakes?
Yes, banana oat pancakes.
Ah,
I've been making, and now I look like a pancake.
no, we don't. But every day too. Oh, we'll have to trade pancake recipes on the side, but it's like, yeah, I think just having the time to like have these, I've been doing a lot of actually like conversations like this on different platforms, like whether it's about intuition, or I'm actually starting my own with another person, a virtual seminar about creativity, which we'd love to get your thoughts on later. But I think I'm saying, I'm always trying to constantly reinvent myself in terms of what is something that at this point in time in my career that is not is something that benefits somebody else in any way, because I've done the dancing, done that, which is great, but like at this point in my life, it's like what am I doing to either better somebody's life or the world, or I don't know, we're artists, that's our job. And I think I like, it's really touched me. I think for so many of us as artists, with everything happening on the world, like we're like, this is why we are given this gift. This is why we have trained our whole lives, is to impact somebody, whether it's to make them think or make them happy or make them feel loved or make them question their beliefs, or to ignite them in some way. Like we have, this is what artists are for. So as much as we don't have work right now, we have a lot of work to do. So
The calling is still there.
yeah.
Yeah. You are welcome to come back anytime, and I feel like you and I could go into more specific topics that would be really interesting to dive in with you for sure. So please feel free to come on anytime. Thank you. Huh?
We'll get real coffee and tea when we can.
Yeah. When we can, yeah. Thank you again, Kavita. Everything that you do for your community and, South Asian community, non-South Asian community, for just us dancers in general. Thank you for what you do and for the road that you've helped paved for us.
Well, thank you for starting this. I'm really excited to keep seeing and watching all the amazing people that you've been bringing on.
Yay. Thanks again. I will see you soon.